first jobs I got in high school was a telemarketing gig. Yes, telemarketing. Selling tickets to a Christmas ice skating show. A show aptly named Santa on Ice. The office was a boiler room run by an old man suffering with emphysema. His name was Sam Cannon. He had a portable oxygen tank and tubes up his nose to help him breathe. But this didn't stop old man Sam from chain-smoking Pall Malls. He would roam between the aisles of telephones and high school telemarketers, all the while coughing and wheezing, and between drags on his cigarettes he would say and gasp, "I want to hear them phones ringing." That guy, Sam Cannon, had balls. I loved this job because nobody in management seemed to notice it when, out of boredom, I would digress off the script, and instead of telling people it was Santa on ice, I would tell people it was tickets for Satan on ice. Come see Satan and his elves because hell has finally frozen over. And I still sold a shit ton of tickets. Whenever I would bum a cigarette off of Sam, he would tell me I was doing a great job. You're doing a great job. After all, he was the one paying me $3 an hour. It was something I liked because I could still goof off at it. It's not easy to sell things over the phone, but I became rather good at it. Plus, there's probably nothing sexier sounding than, "Oh, I'm a telemarketer." After struggling with a learning disorder, I barely graduated high school. I had tried a semester of community college, but my inability to focus hadn't seemed to improve since I was held back in the first grade. But telemarketing gave me options despite my flaws. Where else, besides washing dishes, could I wear whatever I wanted and never cut my hair? I was actually prepping for my ideal job, what I really aspired to be since I was 14. I really wanted with all my heart to be a Ramone. That was my plan A, to become a Ramone. Telemarketing was like plan B or C. So at 20-something, I had bounced between New York City and California, and my resume included I was a clerk in a record store and a bunch of low to no paying jobs in a punk rock band as a drummer or a singer, and I was a phone sex operator. And sometimes through sheer chance, I had a girlfriend with a trust fund. I was always just trying to be myself, despite some bad decisions I was making along the way. I left California through one of those poor decisions, and I moved back to Rochester, New York, where I grew up. I answered a help wanted ad in the newspaper that read, "Wanted, fundraiser, experienced telesales, commission only." I called and I made an appointment for the late afternoon because that gave me enough time to put my mop of hair into a ponytail. Oddly enough, the office was located at the back door and in the basement of the Rochester City Police Union Hall, a perfect front for something. I rang the buzzer, and the manager met me at the front door with a cautious stare, and he looked behind me to make sure I was alone or not being followed. "I'm here about the ad." Then he relaxed, and he gave me one of those frat guy handshakes. "So you've done telemarketing before?" I said, "Yeah," not wanting to sound too anxious. "Good. So now let me tell you what we do." He pointed to a chair in the office, and he handed me a script. "Now, read this to me." I was hoping he was going to explain about the job, but first he wanted to make sure I could read. I read the script aloud. "Hello, can I speak to the owner, please?" I asked in my best telemarketing voice. "Yeah, speaking." Now he started role-playing with me as I read from my audition with the sales script. My name is blah, 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 and I'm calling with the Rochester Police Benevolent Association. I read on as he sat across from me with his arms folded, like a Hollywood agent. I decided to add a little more bass to my voice. We are printing up our 1991 police yearbook, and we're asking our business friends like yourself to show your support by buying an ad in our publication. I sat up in my chair because I realized the influence of asking for money with license and consent to do it in the name of the police. I read on. We have a full-page ad starting at $1,500. Can you be a superhero and do that one? It actually was printed like that. It said superhero. So in my head, I was virtually rolling my eyes at the sheer balls it took to read the script with any conviction. Next, he had me use some of the rebuttals or the comebacks that were highlighted on the page. Like if they kept saying no to you, I would say, "Can I ask you a question?" is how most of the print rebuttals began. Then followed by pleas of financial amounts from $1,000 to $25. I know you can do that. Or the guys are really hoping they could count on you. That's how some of the closers read. Now, if those failed, there was a real gem. I learned later on, and this one took a little bit of practice. If a guy was still trying to tell you, no way, it was then you would just pause, and between the silence, you were allowed to say, "Hey, Bob, can I ask you a question? Are you mad at the guys?" Christ. This job could be as much fun as Satan on ice. This was really punk rock, man. As the months rolled by, I came pretty good at a job that I worked less than 40 hours. I made about 40 grand a year, and not bad for a guy in the early 90s that refused to cut his hair or even wear a collared shirt. I had a nice apartment in a doorman building where I played my drum set in the living room. My weekends filled with lots of adventure, lots of vice, frequent trips to Toronto and New York City playing punk rock music. Come Monday morning, I was at my desk and on the phone with Mr. Lee at the dry cleaners, or maybe it was Mr. Miko at the pizza place. Could the cops count on him to donate $500? I could include a police benevolent license and registration card holder for your glove box. Because there were these cheap, really cheap promotional items the cops would let our company buy in order to raise incentive for buying bigger ad space in a yearbook that in reality actually nobody ever actually saw. We would give out these gratuities based on raising our personal commissions. We had police pens, police coffee mugs, PBA keychains. There were police benevolent cards for your wallet if you paid enough money. And of course, we had the ever popular police badge honorary member decals for your car window. Everybody wanted those. People would always ask, "Will it get me out of a ticket?" And you would always seal the deal with the overused but effective tagline of, "Well, you can run all the green lights in town, buddy." It really made me wince to say it, but it always worked. We had boxes and boxes of this crap. License plate frames with a silver badge, police logos. It was a bonanza. And then something happened. This newspaper reporter from the Democrat and Chronicle, it's the same newspaper I used to deliver as a 10-year-old. He started to stir up public outcry in the front page headlines with an investigative news story that was impossible to ignore. Day after day of blaring front page headlines like, "Fundraiser company keeps 75% of police money and donations," or "Police union declines comment," and "New York State Attorney General opens investigation." The guy was only doing his job, telling the truth. Now, within weeks of the endless articles, the cops, they kicked us out of the same building, the basement of their building that we rented from them. And we started getting visits from the state attorney general's office. All the police stickers and lapel pins in the back room could not help us. But the fact was that while the share of the money was not fair, the real truth was it was legal. Just unfair. It was a hustle. Now my boss, the owner of the fundraiser company, the guy who signed the contracts with the cops, this was the guy from Manhattan. His name was Anthony Garillo. This guy had a real presence in a room, for real. He's a guy you really wanted on your side. I liked him a lot. He was a true leader. And Mr. Garillo, that guy knew a thing or two, how to make money in the free market. Anthony Garillo had balls. I was taken off guard when Mr. Garillo, he pulled me aside and he shared an idea with me about forming a new company. A new company the New York Attorney General had never heard of. A company with me as the goddamn president. A new front. He saw something in me that I never saw. I couldn't see it at the time anyway. Tony, he took me under his wing, and he had chosen me out of the office of other misfits to become the figurehead of a new fundraiser company. And after a few trips to an attorney, I became legally bonded and insured. I was no longer a telemarketer. Now, I had a stack of business cards. Gotham Productions Incorporated, David Latham, fucking president. After a few trips to the tailor, I got fitted for a half dozen suits, and last but not least, a trip to the barber, where I cut off the hair. Because Tony used to say to me, "You gotta look like a pro, not a provolone." That year and the next year, I learned a lot. I learned how to go to these little towns and cities across New York State, and I'd meet with the cops who were elected leaders of their police department unions. Through word of mouth and sometimes grease and some palms, I signed and I inked more than a few lucrative contracts, all by myself. Tony taught me a lot. He also taught me how to sweeten a deal. I would pay each town police officers with cash to sit in our traveling boiler room. And if anybody we called doubted the legitimacy of the local cops we were calling on behalf of, then that cop I paid would get on the phone and give their blessing. Some of the cops, true story, some of the cops would squawk their police radios next to the receiver just to add effect. It was ridiculous. During one campaign outside of Syracuse, there was this one cop. He wanted me to give him a weekly list of people who did not donate. A few years ago, that guy got shot. Now, all of this, as it dragged on, I hated it. I really hated it. I didn't like it. I never wanted to be the boss. I didn't have the balls to be a boss. Yeah, I was making more money than I ever will, ever. But I longed for my freedom. I had enough. I didn't want to die like Sam Cannon, smelling like cigarettes and poor decisions. I walked away for pennies on the dollar. No regrets. Last year, and exactly 20 years later, the New York State Tax Board tracked me down and without any warning seized my bank account for back taxes, they say. And I'm currently sending them a couple $100 every month just to catch up. Because what happened was I phoned the New York State Tax Bureau to negotiate the debt, and the nice clerk told me, "I know you can handle that." Maybe I'll get a sticker for my car when I pay it all off.